I'm Don MacArthur. I was working for the Kingston Trio and Frank Werber as a road manager from 1958 to 1965. Previous to that, I was friends with all those guys before the Kingston Trio ever existed. First of all, I grew up with Nick Reynolds in Coronado, California. We've been pals since grammar school. Played grammar school basketball together. I went into the service after high school, and Nick Reynolds went up to Northern California here to college at a place called Menlo Business College near Stanford. And I got out of the service. In fact, I went into the Navy because Nick Reynolds talked me into joining the Naval Reserves when we were in high school. So I had to do 2 years active duty, got out of the Navy, was floating around Coronado, didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, and Nick was home on vacation. He said, well, if you ever feel like coming up north, come on up, you can sleep on my dorm floor. And I said, okay. So a month or so later, I had no direction in my life whatsoever, so I just jumped in my car and hit the road and started hanging out with Nick. And I was around Menlo College so much they actually thought I was going to school there. And there was a little place called the Cracked Pot that was in Redwood City. There was a little beer joint. Peanuts in the baskets, peanuts, sawdust on the floors, had a little stage. And college kids would come in there and sing and play. And Dave Guard was going to Stanford. Bob Shane and Nick Reynolds were going to Menlo Business College. They were part of it. They ended up, you'd grab a pair of bongos or a conga drum and get up on the stage and sing, me included. Although I couldn't sing very well, I was having a heck of a lot of fun, drinking a lot of beer. And one thing led to another, and Frank Werber heard about it. It was mainly Nick, Bob, and Dave Guard. Heard about them singing at this little place called the Crackpot. So he came down from San Francisco and they made a deal, and they started rehearsing up in this little spot that Frank rented up in the city. And Nick had gone home for the summer to do something, and I was still hanging around. And Frank made a deal with Bimbo's 365 nightclub for them to come and audition. Well, Nick was in Coronado, so Dave Guard said, well, Don, why don't you just jump in here? This is part of the story a lot of people don't know. It was a miracle to me that we went, auditioned for this job. They gave us the job. So I was actually singing in Nick's spot for the first night of that gig. And then Dave called Nick in Coronado and said, get your fanny back up here. So Nick came up, and the rest is history. I mean, they went on to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Capitol Records signed him. I had gone back to Coronado at the time. Tom Dooley, of course, became a monstrous hit. And when that happened, they started getting job offers. And Joan Reynolds, actually, friend of Dan Hicks, came down to Coronado and said, you know what, we need someone to work with the guys as a road manager. Are you available? And I said, sign me up, because I still wasn't doing much. So I remember going up to Los Angeles. That's where the trio was appearing that weekend, and met with Frank. He hired me, and the rest is history. We went, just as Dean Riley said earlier, we went all over the world together. Met some amazing musical groups. You know, when I think about people that opened for the Kingston Trio, Barbra Streisand opened for the Kingston Trio. Woody Allen opened for the Kingston Trio. Bill Cosby opened for the Kingston Trio. It was just incredible, the talent that they were involved with. And just all the promoters, Foyle Gilmore, Capitol Record, everybody at that time period was just, they're just great people. And the excitement about the Kingston Trio when that first album started selling, and Tom Dooley was a big hit. In the college campuses, it was enormous. All of a sudden, there were 10 or 15 folk singing groups, everybody in striped shirts at every campus that we went to. I mean, they always sold everything out. So it was just a marvelous experience. And working with them, you know, you hear horror stories about famous people that make a lot of money and so on and so forth. And these guys, they really didn't get in much trouble. They were pretty honest, easy to get along with. Anybody could talk to them. It wasn't at all unusual for them to have some college kid who was promoting the concert, say, we're having a party after the concert, can you guys come over? They'd go over and sing till 3 o'clock in the morning at somebody's house just because they loved it. You know, the culture at the time was just this clean cut, let's have fun, folksy kind of a feeling with people. Of course, the Kennedy era was coming in. The Kingston Trio loved the Kennedys. Earlier, somebody mentioned the White House, I think Dean Riley. We went to Lyndon Johnson's inauguration. Sidney Poitier was there among those other people that Dean mentioned. But I think a lot of the young people in the country had a nice, healthy attitude about what was going on, which I think we might have lost sight of. That was what was happening then. Well, one thing I'd like to say is which I just thought of when you're talking about John, is when Dave Guard left the Kingston Trio, Frank Werber, the manager, and my boss started just interviewing all kinds of different people. I don't even remember exactly who they were, but along came Jon Stewart. It was incredible. It was like you unscrewed Dave Guard's head and screwed Jon Stewart's on, because they sang a lot alike. Jon Stewart's physical mannerisms were picture perfect. I mean, he sang a couple songs with the trio and it was a done deal. You're hired. It was incredible. I mean, they were worried for a while. You know, what are we going to do here? We need someone to take. And out of nowhere came John. It was very cool.
Fantastic.
And as far as Frank Werber goes, Frank had an unusual start in his life. He was born in Germany. His family was there when the Nazis came rolling in, and they ran for it. And they went, I'm not sure exactly what countries they went to, but they settled for a short period of time in Brussels. So, and then I think they worked their way to somewhere in the outside the United States somewhere, then got into the U.S. somehow. But when we were in London doing that tour at that time, Frank and I took a little vacation after they're all done. We went just cruising around Europe. And so all of a sudden he says, hey, we rented a car, and he said, let's go to Brussels. He said, and so we went to Brussels, and we're driving around. He's trying to his dad worked at a camera store there. He's trying to find this camera store. So we're driving down this big, long boulevard, and here's this big, huge building, kind of a diamond-shaped building, or triangle-shaped building. He says, you know what, I think this is it. If we drive around the other side of this building, there should be a school there, and then right past that is where the camera store was. So we go around, there's the school, go around the next corner, there's the camera store, still there.
Wow.
We stopped the car, he got out of the car, went over there, just started weeping on the street. I'm going to start weeping telling the story. It was one of the coolest emotional experiences I've ever had with a friend in my life. I mean, all those memories came flooding back. His mother, I think, lost her life on that trip trying to, you know, get away from the Germans. And so he was thinking about his mom and his father, who was still alive, and it was really a nice experience to have with a friend.